Hello and welcome to the Voice of Intuition podcast. My name is Susan Jane and I believe that trusting your intuition is the best way to live your life with meaning and purpose. Each week you will hear about how you can connect, develop and trust your intuition through the wonderful array of guests we have on the show and my own personal experiences. Join me to understand how your intuition can guide you towards a life full of meaning and loving purpose. Hello and welcome to the Art of Intuition podcast. I will need to fix up the front of that before I go too much further. But welcome to the show. Now, today, I talked about it last week about how this has all been set up and how the trusting this process has allowed us to grow and develop in slow ways, in certain ways. I shouldn't say slow ways. But today we're talking about how to trust your intuition and open yourself to new possibilities. Now, I want to bring in a situation that I experienced and basically the story about what I experienced in doing this, because it was pretty major when it happened to me. When we go through difficult transitions, it's easy to become closed off, after like a painful breakup or a betrayal or a major life shift, which is what I had. We instinctively want to protect ourselves. Now, we could build emotional walls, convinced that staying guarded will keep us protected or keep us safe. But in doing so, we may also block the very opportunities that could lead to healing, growth, and new beginnings. So to truly trust the process, we must not only allow change, as we talked about last week, but we must also open ourselves to the possibility that it brings. Now, when we talk about the power of being open, think of a time when you felt a little bit closed off from life. Maybe it was a relationship that ended, or you told yourself you'd never love again. Maybe it was when you lost a job, or you could convince yourself that nothing better would come about. And this was sort of the experiences that I was having. It's in those moments, we're tempting to retreat to our comfort zone, or even stay in that area that's stuck. Staying in that victim status, we often go into that sort of area where we just sort of go, well, there's nothing I can do, and we start to blame everybody else. But I want you to sort of try and recall the time when you did take a chance, when you did say yes despite of fear. Maybe it was to take a spontaneous trip or meet someone new. Maybe pursue a career change that you felt was a little risky. More often than not, those moments of openness lead to something unexpected, and beautiful. Life is constantly presenting opportunities, but we have to be willing to see them. If we focus solely on what we've lost, we miss what's trying to come in. Now, remember, when one door closes, another one opens. So we have to remain open, even through those tough times. And it was during this tough time that I wanted to share my experience, because I felt I was really following my intuition. All my little ducks were lining up in a row. I really felt like I was doing the right thing, doing everything right. Everything was, the synchronicity was amazing. Everything was coming through. And yet it was quite devastating at the end. But let me tell you about this story. So I had my own practice, my own natural therapies practice. And I had separated from my marriage, and I had bought the house out. So I had my own home. I had my own business, which was sort of attached to the home. It was a standalone 2-room natural therapies clinic, and I had staff on as well. I had this all going. 2 of my children had left home. They were living with their partners, and my youngest son was due to move out to go to university. And I had been thinking for a long time, when I'm working in my natural therapies clinic, I could work on, say, 5 people a day, and 5 days a week, that's 25 people I could help. But I wanted to reach more people. And in those days, they didn't have podcasts then. but I wanted to reach more people. I wanted to be able to help, to be able to give that advice and support and that encouragement to others. And so I started looking at a university degree for myself. I didn't quite know where I wanted to go or what it was all about, but I still wanted to put it out there. I wanted to look at something. And this is where all the ducks started to fall into line. I went my natural therapies clinic, the girl that sort of started with me, she was happy to take over as the manager there, and she was happy to go on there. But I decided that I wanted to go to uni. And I did have a few friends saying, well, what are you going to study? What does it look like? And I threw around a few ideas because I was already in the natural therapies area. So I did want to go into that, more of a health role, but I didn't know if I wanted to go into naturopath or what I wanted to go in. I'd just come off of 10 years of working on our farm. We'd been on the farm for over 10 years, and it was an organic crop farm. So I was doing a lot of self-sufficiency and things in that area. So I wanted to be able to step up in that health field. And I started looking at different ones. I did look at naturopath. I did look at workplace health and safety. I looked at those areas there because I am quite structural and I do like that side of things. What I eventually started looking at was a public health degree. And the public health degree had those areas in it. And one of the areas they also had in there was about health promotion. So promoting, which is more about that positive preventative help rather than waiting till someone gets sick and then start to do something. So I was into that positive mindset and how we could do that. So I started looking at the public health degrees, and there was a lovely degree there that would work really nice. It was a 3-year degree for me. And I thought, okay, I could do this. And again, things started to fall into place for me. So I knew that it was right. And there was a couple of times when things would just happen. So I remember my girlfriend saying to me, but what if you don't get into that degree? And I can remember just saying words without actually thinking about them. And the words just came out, if I don't get into that, I'll get into something else. Or I'll get into I'll do a bridging gap, a bridging degree to bridge my knowledge with where I could go. So it was like I didn't have to think about it. It was just like intuition was just talking. Somebody else said to me, well, how are you going to pay for your house? Because I was still paying off a mortgage after buying it from my ex-husband. So I still had to pay for my mortgage. How are you going to pay for your mortgage? Work, study full-time, try and work enough to be able to pay for your mortgage and still live. And I remember I remember the words coming out again. Who said I had to stay here? And I never thought about moving until those words came out. And then I thought to myself, well, yeah, who says I have to stay here? So what I ended up doing was I put renters in my own home because my youngest daughter then had left and gone to uni. I put renters in my own home. I put a manager in my business, and I'd come back every weekend to work the business as well. And I left basically my 3 children because they were off on there doing their own thing. And I moved about 3 hours south, and I actually went to uni in what is now the Gold Coast. What is the Gold Coast? I was up on the northern end of the Sunshine Coast, and now I'm on the Gold Coast, which is the other side of Brisbane. So I did that, and I started my uni degree. Got in as soon as I said, I don't have to stay here, a friend of mine popped in my head, and I remembered that he had a granny flat where he was living. What house he owned with his wife, they had a granny flat. So I gave him the phone and said, is anybody in there? No. Would you like somebody in there? And everything worked out. It went so smoothly. Again, all the ducks lined up. I knew intuitively that this is what I was supposed to do. And this is why things made things so hard at the end. Because I did my 3-year uni degree. I worked 3 part-time jobs while I was doing it. The first year I would come back to my clinic, and then that became too hard and I had to let the clinic go. I ended up working down on the Gold Coast, and I worked, at the university. I worked at different jobs, and I worked my way through it. At the end of the 3-year degree, I'd been going for jobs because I finished at the top 5%. in my class, in my year, actually. I finished at the top 5% of the students. So I had done really, really well. Anyway, I'd been going for jobs and I'd been doing really well and getting right to the end, but just getting pipped at the post, and I couldn't work out why. And so I had asked a few times, and I got the response that came back was, oh, somebody else had a little bit more experience than you. You had all the quals, but not the experience. And I thought, well, that's strange, because this public health promotion was a new degree. It hadn't been out for very long. So I knew that there was still a lot of call for it. And it was about 6 months after I finished the degree. Now, again, intuition, I had followed it all the way along, done my 3 years, worked my guts out, spent $30,000 to get this university degree. And within 6 months of me getting it, the government changed hands and wiped out all the jobs in the public health sector for health promotion. They all went into the private sector. So where I was going for jobs, I wasn't getting them because the people in the public health sector were going for them. And that's why they had the experience, because they'd already been in the role. And I was pretty devo, I can assure you, after spending all that time leaving my kids, putting people in my house, my home, and doing, and basically ended up losing the business because I just couldn't maintain it, obviously. But losing all that, and then for what I felt was the right thing, and then finding out that 6 months later, after I'd finished, there wasn't any jobs to go to. There was nothing to go to. And I was pretty shitty. I was pretty devastated. You know, it's not easy to go through all of that and then feel like you're on the right path and then have everything ripped out from underneath you. I ended up having to go for jobs that were very menial, answering the phone. I hate answering the phone. Like, I'm flat out answering the mobile phone now. I can assure you. Send me an email. You'll get a better response. But I had to go back to the beginning. I just spent $30,000. I had a university degree. I thought I was on top of the world, and I had nothing. I had to go back to what I had done even a long time before I went to uni. So it became really, really challenging and became very, very demeaning, really, really tough. And in some of the positions that I was going for, because I had to get some work, some of the positions I was going for, they didn't give it to me because I had too much experience. I had too many qualifications. So again, it was like I can't win. Before I didn't have enough. Now I've got too many. I can't get a job in that sort of situation. I can't do what I wanted to do. I can't do what I felt I was set to do, what my purpose was. So I did go through a pretty tough time of it, pretty hard time. But I started to shift my perspective. I started to change my mindset. Instead of viewing things in a way that it was, woe is me, poor me, or the rest of it, I started to change how I was feeling. And when we look at, say, a metaphor for openness, you can imagine yourself standing in a dark room and all the blinds are closed, all the windows are closed, there's no light on, it's really, really dark, right? And that was how I was feeling. I felt like I was in this cave. I could not see where I needed to go. I could not see anything. The shadows had hidden everything. I just could not see anything. A metaphor for openness is being able to go to that curtain or that blind and slowly open it. And when you're slowly opening it, that's when you're slowly starting to shift your perspective of it. And that's what I had to do, because it was easy to see the woe is me. It was easy to see the darkness, but I couldn't see the light. I just couldn't see it. The other thing about learning to trust our intuition and open ourselves to new ways is about not opening the door and the blind and everything and turning the lights on. It's not about opening the whole lot, because that's overwhelming. It's about doing it in small bits at a time, but it's seeing it, When there's a door open, you're seeing it. When there's a blind opening, you're seeing it. It's being open to those new ideas, those new perspectives. And that's what I did. I started to think, well, what did I get out of all of this? Because I'm now 30 grand behind. I've spent 3 years doing something I can not use unless I move interstate or overseas. What did I get out of this? And I started to think, well, hang on. I got an understanding of computers at a very early stage. I know how to build websites. I know how to do marketing. I know how to create a podcast. I know a lot more about online space than a lot of other people, especially my age, would know about that. And that's because I did that degree late in life. The other thing I learned, and again, I am one that likes the structure. I like words. I learned to write in a better way. I'm getting better at speaking, but I learned to write in a better way. I learned to be able to put things in perspective. I learned to be able to analyze and create something a little bit differently. So it gave me that shift in perspective. It gave me a better understanding. It gave me tools to create that confidence in being able to turn on a computer. And I know that sounds strange because we all do that nowadays, but I did it 20 odd years ago. I did it a long time ago, and I've got that confidence coming through, especially again as an older age. So I started to look at the different things that I could do. And then when I was looking at jobs, I started to look at them and I started to say yes more often. I started to go, okay, I could do that. Oh, maybe I could look at that. And so more opportunities started to open up. I changed my mindset. I changed my perspective. And then I said yes a little bit more. And there was things I said yes to that maybe I shouldn't have said yes to. But there was other things there that led me to some amazing situations and some amazing learnings. I went in with what was called CareFlight then. I went into a not-for-profit organisation and I started doing training in there. Now, they put me on the front desk because they needed somebody on the front desk and they just decided that I would be the one. I was bored out of my little brain, I can assure you. So being bored out of my little brain, I started looking at their internet and their intranet at that stage, intranet, and looking at the software programs that they had and what they were using and how they were using them. And I started to put things together and started to move things around and started creating new opportunities in there. I said yes more often. And then from going from somebody on the front desk who basically, because it was with helicopters, I was with helicopters. So it was all the legal aspect of letting people into the door because of the airport we were attached to. So basically that was what I was to do. I started to put some training together. I started to create systems and processes. And it made me realize how much I enjoy doing that sort of thing, how I enjoy doing that. So in saying yes more often, I took on different roles. I reshaped things. And one of the things I did say yes to is I started to get a lot of downloads for my first book. And I don't know why. I've always wanted to write a book, but I had no idea what I was going to write. I loved reading nonfiction. I always read nonfiction books. I loved all the self-help and, how to build your wealth and how to think clearly. I loved all those sort of books. Again, we didn't have internet when I was growing, in those younger years. So it was always books. I always had books. And I wanted not necessarily to write one, but to be able to share my knowledge. And I could do that in writing a book. So I started to actually say yes to that too. And I started to jot down a few things and started to create a bit of a, book type thing. And that's when I went into sort of that stage 3 where you need to be open and in to the unexpected paths. And that's when things started to change a little bit. Detours that come through, intuitive work that started to come through, opening up myself to allow those sort of different things to come through. And I can remember at one stage I was getting really down because I was really bored with my job. It was really boring. I didn't feel I was getting anywhere. And that's when I went, well, okay, maybe I could be writing my book, because they're not giving me any work to do. I'm trying to find things to do, and there's sort of not a lot to do. So I started writing my book. I could have the computer there and I could just tap away at it, and it allowed me to open up these unexpected paths. And so from this almost depressive state of not being able to get work and going into jobs that were so, I was so overqualified for, it allowed me then to start to create my book. And so that's when Intuitive Flowers, Empowering Your Emotional Goals, all came about. It all came through in its right way. Now, if I hadn't have gone to uni, I hadn't have taken those steps, I hadn't been open, it wouldn't have come through the way it did. And since then, I have built websites on it. I have built my whole life about this understanding, about trusting myself, trusting my intuition, and opening myself up to new possibilities, opening myself up to what is available there. Because I went to uni thinking it was all right, which it was, but thinking that was the one path. But it wasn't. It was just a stepping stone for the next stage. And so I changed my mindset in that way. And you can do that too. Know where you're at now is a stepping stone. And if you are feeling ratty and uncomfortable and everything else, it's because what you perceive to be your next step is probably not your next step. What I perceived to be was, I finish university and I go into the industry, and that's what I do. I teach people how to, look after their health in a proactive manner. No, maybe I need to help people look after their spiritual health in a proactive manner. But I had to change my mindset. I had to change my understanding of where I was going to open myself up to receive the other things I could do. And that's what I say to you now. Look at, if you're in a situation now where you feel that you know where you're meant to be, but you're just not quite getting there. If you feel like you're in that sort of a situation, step back and go, okay, where I feel I was meant to be going, maybe that's not where I need to be going. It may be in a similar direction, but on a different path. And you don't know that. This is where you sort of go, okay, let me change my mindset, go back, change my mindset, change my perspective. Instead of looking at all the shitty stuff, start looking at some of the positives. What have you learned? How have you got to where you are? What are those little steps that you've been taking? And then say yes more often, and say yes to different opportunities. Say yes to, all right, if it's about work, if it's about a relationship, or say yes to others, but don't be gentle. Don't be, it doesn't mean you have to say yes to everybody, but just say yes in a different way. Just say yes to, hey, I might go there instead. I might go join a walking group. I might try this club instead of that club. Try something different. In a relationships type thing, it's better to meet somebody who is similar-minded to you. So joining a club or a group is so much better than, say, going to the local pub or going to, go dancing if that's what you like, a particular type of dancing, because you're going to meet somebody that's more similar to you. So say yes to them. If your friend turns around and goes, hey, let's go and do, I don't know, some rock and roll dancing, and you sort of go, oh, no, I haven't got a partner, rah. Say yes to it, because you don't know what's going on there. If you're in a job that you're just not sure of and you see something else, if one of those areas that I looked at, like not so long ago, I had felt like I'd reached the end of my work life as far as in this business, in this particular business I was in. I felt like I'd reached the end of it. I hit the glass ceiling. Like the only one higher than me was the owner, and you can't go higher than that, and they weren't prepared to do that anyway. But I felt like I had done everything I could do to build this business up to where it was, and I needed to do something different. I wanted to look at something else. So I was right in a digital marketing agency, and I was doing Google Ads. So I was the senior Google Ads account manager there, and I actually ran most of the business on my own in that context. We had a few staff members. I got to the stage where I went, you know what, I want to do something more. I've had enough of this, and I want to do something more. And in that was my shift in perspective, because I could have stayed there. You know, it was working from home. It was 3 days a week, you know, just my right time. And I was, you know, still learning and that. But it got to the stage where I had to change that shift in perspective. And it was like, I've reached my ceiling. It's a glass ceiling, and I've reached it now. I can't go through that unless I go into my own digital agency, and I didn't want to do that. Not this late in life. I didn't want to do that. I want to retire in a couple of years. So I had to change my perspective. So what was it that I wanted? What was I looking at? And I looked at it, my knowledge and my understanding and what I had grown from there. And I thought, you know what? I wouldn't mind going into another digital agency, but learn a bit more about Facebook and Meta and a few other different options. I love building websites. So I enjoy doing that. I love the concept and the construct behind it, but I wanted to get a better understanding of other things. And when I've done that, that's when you say yes. That's when you've said yes to opportunities. I started to look at other jobs that were available, and I went, it just does not feel right. I do not want to go from the fire to the frying pan to the fire. You know, I didn't want that. I wanted to be more structured. I wanted to get a better understanding of what I liked. So I started to look at digital agencies in our local area. And so I'd look on their website. Did I like what they have on their website? Nope. Okay. If I didn't like that, then what do I like? So I got an understanding, and it was there was 3 there that I liked. One I really liked. There was a lot of the imagery was softer. It was women. They felt a little bit more connected to what they were doing. The other one had a few more men in it, and again, that was fine. That didn't worry me. They looked like they were having fun, because some of the images they put up, they obviously did a lot of group stuff together, and it looked quite fun. And I thought, oh, that sounds like a nice, light, but, you know, nice place to work. So I had those 2 in mind. The one with the men in it was a bit further away, and I didn't like the area. But again, it was business, not living. But the first thing I did was, the first one I liked with all the girls in it, I went, okay, I'll try there. But this time I'm going to put forward and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I can do. Are you interested in that? Do you have space available? You know, did you want to take on somebody? And the funny thing is, I got a response back saying, hey, I can't take you on at the moment, but I'm really interested in what you do and how you do it. It is something that I want to look at. I just can't take you on at the moment. Because I said, I only want 20 hours a week. I don't want to work full time. I only want 20 hours a week. That's fine. It keeps my hand going, keeps my head going, and I love it. Anyway, so I ended up getting a job there because I said yes a little bit more often. I said yes, but I still said no. There was areas there that were just no, that's not it. The yes part was, yes, there's the opportunity to get a different job, the opportunity to do something that I want to do, the opportunity to change things up a bit. So I said yes there, but I also said it with very clear understanding that I knew what no was and I knew what yes was. There was a couple of websites I looked at from digital agencies, and straight away I went, ooh, that doesn't feel right. And I don't know what they were like. They could be great, but it didn't feel right. So I said no to them because I could say yes to the others. And now I'm in that role, and it wasn't quite what I expected to start with, but it's coming along really nicely now, and it's allowed me to grow and achieve things. So, you know, the path we take, our path of purpose, isn't always as simple as we look at. And I tend to say it's not necessarily a path. It's probably more like stepping stones. And so we can follow those stepping stones anyway and get to the other side of the river. But just be open, change your perspective. Say yes because you know what no means. say yes a little bit more often, and be open to unexpected ways, unexpected stepping stones. And that's how you'll start to open and trust your intuition, be open to some of those areas. That is what you need to do this week. Next week, we're going to talk about experiencing the journey, because we can do this, but we need to be able to enjoy it as we go as well, because it can get quite overbearing sometimes. But let's say for now, enjoy your experiences, enjoy your life. Hang on, I've got to find the right spot to say goodbye. There we go. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. But for the time at the moment, trust your intuition, open yourself to the new possibilities. You're going to love it. Bye for now.